What is up, YouTube? Today, I'm going to be covering the actual balance update adjustments that were announced. I think I always do these every single time because I want to give you guys my insight on the heroes to look out for, to re-gear, to get ready, and some of the ideas that I have in mind upon first glance. Now, looking at this list, and of course, please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy these types of videos. But basically, there are 11 characters and 2 artifacts covered in this balance adjustment. Now, a lot of characters were changed. Judge Kise, LRK, Senya, Baal Sezan, Beehoo, Hwayoung, Landy, Gala, Bdom, Adin, and Momo. Now, Crown of Glory and Otherworldly Machine are also getting huge changes, so I do want to cover that in detail as well. But let's not waste any time, and I'll put timestamps for each character. So if you're trying to just jump to each character to get the nitty gritty, maybe you're missing a character, you'll be able to find that information. So Judge Kise. Basically, they are changing her constellation from a Virgo to Sagittarius. Now, if you don't know what that looks like in terms of base stats, I'll pop it on screen so that you can compare the difference. But overall, she's getting a little bit more bulk, a little bit more speed, essentially. So it's going to make building her a little bit easier. And her S3 is going to allow her to have a 85% chance of defense break instead of 75. So overall, it just helps with the consistency of her landing defense breaks, and giving her a little bit more speed helps building her a little easier. But overall, I would say Judge Kise is not really that necessary in the current meta, just because she's a little bit too slow. Other debuffers do her job far better, and she doesn't really have any push, and it's just not great, right? Now, Last Rider Krau is going to be having his barrier strength increased. Now, obviously, the barrier right now is already very good. And I think if you are someone that plays a lot of RTA, you would know that something that's really prevalent in the meta is School Nurse Yolha chained with the LRK on S3A with 3F, right? This has been very prominent by a lot of the strong players, especially like KJ, who is one of the best players in the world. And you basically just make like a 35k Krau with Yolha superhumanization, and you just stomp people with 3F. So this barrier strength is going to be even better because obviously they're changing Crown of Glory, which a lot of people use as a natural free ring counter to deny the soul, and obviously like Bellion and any hard AoE. But mainly, I would say that this is just a really good change for LRK. That's just gonna make people play him even more, right? He's made a return to the meta with Demo Yolha. This just exacerbates it. Now, Dragon Bride Senya is actually pretty insane. So one thing I want to point out is she's now going to get 10 souls. Okay, she gets 10 souls when her S2 procs, which is basically when the ally in the back takes too much damage, right? As we all know. 10 souls means that you no longer need to run any souls for her to soul burn, which increases the damage dealt. You no longer need to run like a precious connection. When Genesis Ross first came out, a lot of people, or maybe some people, were trying to test like a precious connection with Senya because she could be self-sufficient for the soul generation. Now her S2 just provides that to her by itself, natural, which is insane, right? Now, Oath of Punishment also is increased from 2 turns down to, or from 2 turns to 3 turns, and the increased damage is 4k instead of 2.5, which is very significant. Okay, the Soul Burn increases the damage dealt, but it also decreases by 2 turns. What does that mean? That means you could potentially get 2 Soul Burn S3s off with Dragon Bride Senya. Now, obviously, she's still a little bit weak with units like Imperial Illinav that exist, but on that 4 or 5, when you really need to protect a win condition, like with Dragon Bride Senya, or you're someone that plays Indo Army, and what Indo Army is for someone that doesn't play RTA is if you play like single DPS comps with 4 utility, right? Usually it's like a Celine on 3, and you have a bunch of different characters backing her up. Right? So this is going to help that style even further. But overall, I think Dragon Bride Senya is an amazing change, and I think this is going to be very impactful for Guild War, especially for baiting, right? Element baiting is going to be very, very helpful. The most basic example of this is Renak going into a Miki, and then you have a Miki placed behind the Senya. This is going to make it even better. So Nuke Senya, I don't think it'll change that much in RTA, but it'll definitely make a huge change in Guild War for sure when there's element baiting involved. Now, for Baal Sezan, I think this is overall just a quality of life change for just more debuffs, more reliable. Really nothing. Is still going to be a PvE bot, unfortunately. I don't think he's going to make a sudden debut in RTA. Now, Beehoo is very interesting. I think one of the most annoying things about his passive is him or her. The S2 gives increased attack and defense by 30%. most of the time when you're playing Beehoo's not gonna take damage, right? You're just building like full attack, full effectiveness, and you're just trying to like raw dog them with birds, right? Now they're increasing the effectiveness by 30%, which makes building Beehoo much easier, but also the reliability is also going to be going up. Now, they're going to be adding the burn effects for 2 turns on Beehoo's S3. So what does this mean? This means on the specific Ranger Warfare rule in RTA, where Rangers get a 40% damage reduction, Beehoo might have more potential, right? Because you're obviously going to be able to dispel 2 buffs. That means you can't, obviously, you can buff stack, but it foregoes the immunity, the prot set. You can just S3 and then just straight up strip into burn, insta proc, which can be very, very powerful, right? Now, the constellation change from Capricorn to Pisces, I'll populate on screen as well in terms of what that change looks like in terms of base stats. But what I would also want to point out is that EE is going to be changed as well. The exclusive equipment 3 will be inflicting an additional burn. So I think that's going to be best in slot, honestly, because it's already going to allow you to have burn on the S3, but now you're going to get an extra burn from the EE. So that just makes it way better. No question about it, right? I think the extra effectiveness maybe is for like trial constellations or something like that, PvE, I don't know. But S3, Effect EE3, definitely going to be the one to go for. Now, Hwayoung, I don't really know why Smilegate wants to keep making these like evasion units. I don't really like, I don't love it. I don't really like understand the direction, but I will withhold judgment until the unit comes out and I can test her for like a whole day. So the S3, if I'm understanding this correctly, if you soul burn, it grants an extra attack with the same skill. That means you're gonna S3 into S3 right away. I I don't know if that is like really good or not, because like I don't know if they're gonna touch her multipliers. If they don't, then that would probably be still pretty good. But the fact that she gets 2 S3s and if you have high enough attack on her, that's actually gonna be very, very powerful because it basically penetrates defense by up to 100%. And when you can penetrate anything by 100%, if Illinev is on your team or it's pre-banned, very, very powerful. So in the case of Hwayoung, we're actually going to have to see how much damage she can actually do with the Soul Burn. I think if you pair her with something like Thorn of the Blue Rose, it could be very, very powerful, but it has to be able to kill. If it can't kill, I don't really see it being that strong, but I hope you guys have a lot of blue boxes because they keep releasing a lot of characters with that need like attack right side by attack percent necklace, attack percent rings, so things like Emil, right? Another unit that needed attack. Beehoo, another unit that's getting buffed, attack necklace. Hwayoung, another attack necklace. So hopefully you guys have a lot of blue boxes because we're probably going to have to start crafting attack percent necklaces on speed set or torrent or whatever you're really looking for. Because if you don't, it's kind of a no-brainer, right? You obviously have to have it. You're not going to run HP because you want to have as much damage as possible to kill. So hopefully you guys have those ready. But Hwayoung, we're definitely going to have to test and see exactly how she does. But I think evasion, giving her a little bit more survivability is never a bad thing. So there's that. Now, obviously the S3 is going to, the EE rather, is going to be changing. It's going to be granting her increased a combat readiness by 15%. So if you have something like Swift Boots from like, I don't know, Amid or Tera or whoever, could be good, right? I don't know exactly how good it'll be, but it can't be bad. So there's that. Now, Landy, I don't actually know if I like the changes. I'm not sure. I'll withhold judgment as usual. But basically, now instead of granting speed buff for the whole team, it's going to increase combat readiness of all allies by 25% and granting a barrier proportional to her attack for 2 turns. Now, one of the reasons why I don't love this is because I actually think speed buff is way more valuable. I think this CR gain for 15% and speed buff is totally fair. You know, you're not really using Landy as a combat readiness pusher or even as a bridge. You're typically using them if the enemy has like a lot of buffs like Maid Chloe, right? That's when you're really going to want to pick Landy for that penetration damage, right? So I don't really like understand where that direction is of granting her more CR gain. I think what it would have been nice is if it's increased CR gain up to 25% and also increasing speed. I think that makes a lot of sense, and the barrier, because that would make her even like give you more CR gain, more tempo, speed buff, and survivability with the barriers. Especially if you pair it with something like a protection set, you're basically refreshing the duration, which I think is very good. But I don't really know why they changed it this way. I personally am not a fan of it, but maybe it will be good when it comes out. I'm not sure. Now, for Midnight Gala Lilias, I would say that she is probably the winner of the patch in my particular opinion and for my particular playstyle. So S1 is going to increase the amount recovered for her HP and increases damage dealt when soul burn. I think this is a very good change. I don't think you need to touch the soul burn to move into S3, so that's good. Her S3 is going to grant her an attack buff for 3 turns instead of 2, and it's now going to ignore damage reduction and damage sharing effects. So if they have Aureus, doesn't matter. If they have POV, doesn't matter. If they have Adamant Shield, it doesn't matter, right? So any of these artifacts that are damage reduction, damage sharing, completely forget it. You can just nuke, just straight up nuke and one shot, which is amazing. Very similar to Bystander Hwayoung, right? Now, one thing about her S2 is she now grants 20% CR for the whole team, but she also increases her CR to herself by 50%. So when you pair her with something like a free, with a Amid or Lono Peyra, you can S3 with Gala into an S1 right away. And when you have those types of abilities where you're gaining 3 souls, 2 souls, you're going to be able to soul burn Gala very quickly. So I think this is a very, very good change for Gala in terms of any aggro player, cleave player, for tempo. So definitely want to re-gear Gala ASAP. Now, for Bunny Dom, I think it's kind of interesting. I don't know if I actually like the change, but she no longer grants immunity when someone takes an extra turn. So most commonly, people will pick like Conquer Lilias, right? And then you go B-Dom, you cleanse, you have immunity, you can't get death broken. Now you get skill effect nullifier, and it increases the combat readiness by 30%. Honestly, I kind of like this because this actually allows her to be her base speed is not very good. So when someone S3s, Conquer Lilius gives 15% for the whole team. Now Bunny Dom can't play the game. But when you give her 30% combat readiness gain, now she's a threat, right? You can build her with like ER, you pair that with Soul Consolation, something like that, right? You're increasing the combat readiness by 30%, and also the S3 is going to be from 20 to 30 when you CR push the whole team, and it grants vigor for the whole team as well. So I think honestly, this is an amazing change. I don't like the fact that immunity's gone, but I think it's actually very good because the increased ER by 30%, we all know, has always been somewhat useless, right? It's you're not really picking Bunny Dom to ER check stuff. So I'm really glad that they actually took that out of her kit and, you know, playing around with the skill effect nullifier could be interesting as well, right? So very similar to like New Moon Luna. If you guys don't know how that works, basically it blocks a skill. Now, for and obviously I already covered it, but Vigor is like attack buff and then S3 and whatnot. So you don't get the attack buff anymore, but Vigor is still 30%, which is also granting 30% defense. So you also get survivability. So I'm very curious to see how this works, honestly, because this can now block Renact, right? Like if Renact S2, S3, 7k gets blocked on everybody. So Beatom could actually be a pretty good change, a pretty niche answer for people looking for like a really like low cost investment unit on a 4-star that doesn't need a lot of Molagora to try to combat units like Renac, right? So I think this is honestly a very good change for Beaton. Now Adin. So we always had this joke in Guild War that Adin's a racist because Adin is only able to do more damage to dark units, but that is no longer the case. Adin is no longer racist. God bless. So um S2 is now going to grant 10 souls to herself when she evades. So if you pair it with something like a Setsuka, obviously it's going to be very impactful. Now, when the enemy is defeated, it inflicts extinction. I I like it. Honestly, Ross is a problem. Right now, this is like another free-to-play option to try to counter Ross or counter Yulha. So honestly, I like this overall, and everybody has access to her as long as you're doing adventure. And same thing, it grants invincibility to all allies. Nothing really changes, but this S3 now is going to be added with a soul burn. So we're going to have to see the multipliers to see how much damage soul burn's actually going to do and test it in game. If it can like one shot Ross from 100 to 0 reliably without needing like super whale gear, I could see this being fucking crazy. Like it could be like really really good. Because also like if you play her like speed build and you have like some form of like attack buff, I think it could be pretty interesting. So I think this is a really good change for Aiden for more free to play answers. Especially if you're like a newer player, now it's time to actually invest in Aiden potentially. And when you actually kill an enemy, you can decrease skill cooldown by 2 turns. So again, I think that's pretty good, right? You get a quicker uptime to getting your S3. But again, this is a unit that we for sure have to test, right? On paper, looks really good. W changes, extinction, amazing. But definitely will have to see what changed, like what was going to change when we test her out and play her versus these revived units, right? Now, a Momo, I think this is a crazy change, by the way. If you're a Gyowa player, this is a fucking crazy change. Like, so let me say this again. This is a fucking crazy change, okay? If you watch Meow Mix, if you watch my Gyowa videos, if you just play Gyowa in general, you will know that Angelic Montmorancy is one of the best, if not the best, tanks for Renact when you're elemental baiting. Because she has 20% damage reduction against all damage. It's now increased to 25. Her health rune goes up from 10% to 25. That's very significant. That's a 15% increase. That helps building her even easier. Now, what this means is when she can decrease skill cooldown on the caster by 1 turn, this means you can literally just like S3, S2, S3, S2, S3, S2, and just like spam your abilities nonstop. So I think this actually makes it a very good change. The increased combat readiness is nice when you pair it with something like a Magaraha for someone that's like a newer player. But I'm strictly just thinking about this from like a Gilwar perspective. This makes Renact fall out of the Gilwar meta even more, I would say, just because you have that reliability of Momo to just straight up tank, right? Which is amazing. And the fact that you have 100% chance to dispel one additional debuff now on the S2 is actually amazing. Because it's no longer 25% chance. It's straight up just 100% chance guaranteed. So the reliability of her has just skyrocketed. And more healing from 10 to 20%. So overall, Momo is fucking amazing. W change for Momo if you're a Guild War player. Now, this video's already gone long enough, so artifacts. Crown of Glory, 5 souls to 10 souls. Is it how does this what makes this good? Free Rin on her Mirror Lotus ring can generate souls so fucking fast, right? She just needs to cycle, and chances are, even if you're taking 5 souls away from her, she somehow still has souls. Removing 10 souls is very significant because if there's any form of AoE, so if they play something like Free Rebellion, right, you're able to take those 10 souls away right away. And if you have been playing Crown of Glory LRK already as a counter, this just makes it even fucking better. Even better. So honestly, this is an amazing change from Smilegate. It, from what they said that they're gonna start paying more attention to like balancing stuff, buffing stuff, nerfing or whatever, this you can tell that they definitely thought about this consideration on people to fight for your end. So amazing change from Smilegate. Not sponsored by the way. Now, Otherworldly Machine is finally gonna have a use. We're no longer gonna need her for just crit chance and like AoE damage increase. It now ignores damage sharing effects. What does this mean? This means if a ranger AoEs, it ignores Aureus. Now, what character can we use that's a ranger that has insane AoE nuke potential? Commander fucking Pavel. Okay? If you have fucking Briar Caval, GG. Soulburn Deathbreak into fucking Caval, boom. This is gonna be insane for Caval. Like, fucking insane. Or if you're playing like Zeal Veronica Caval or something like that. I don't know. Just like if you use Caval in general, this is like probably the new best in slot for Caval. I don't think you would actually like put this on Landy over something like Guiding Light or Wall of Order, but Caval, no question, 100%. So that's going to be my thoughts and feelings on the balance patch. Let me know what you guys think. Who do you guys think is the winner of the patch for yourself? Who are you most excited for? I'm really curious. And once again, Merry Christmas. Obviously, some of you guys are waking up on Boxing Day, but Merry Christmas, and thank you to everyone that said Merry Christmas to me as well. So thank you for watching, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your 2025. Have a good day. Bye!